I've never played a tabletop game in real life or in video game version, so Warhammer Quest was a totally new experience for me. I've watched tabletop being played, and I feel like this game's doing pretty much the same thing that I've seen. This is all about questing. You enter dungeons with a particular goal in mind, and you have to fight enemies and bosses and typical RPG stuff to beat each of those dungeons. Your party, if you're smart, will have a pretty good balance between ranged attackers, mages, healers, tanks, and offense. It's a pretty tactical experience because the moves you make each turn are crucial to being able to win a battle. The dungeons are laid out in squares, which really isn't surprising based on how I've seen tabletop played in real life. You select whichever character you want, and then you select the square that you want them to move on to. This game is totally top down, and you can zoom in and out, so it's pretty easy to keep up with what's going on around you at all times. Different classes move differently in a way that's pretty typical with other games like this, like archers can move around the board more to compensate for their lower defense, and mages can't move as much as that, but they have pretty decent range, etc, etc. In some ways it kind of reminds me of the Final Fantasy Tactics games, and I've spent like hundreds of hours playing those, so I felt more comfortable with this game after a few minutes of playing it. I did play it on the easiest difficulty to start out with, but once you bump it up, you definitely get a challenge that will satisfy the people that really nerd out on these types of games, because even for them I think it would be pretty difficult if you bump that setting up to where it should be for that type of player. After you beat each dungeon and finish the quest, you can travel to these local settlements where you buy and sell goods, you can pray to different deities, and this gives you like temporary stat boost, and you can also hire and fire your party members. Overall, I'm going to say the gameplay is pretty solid, and I didn't run into anything that's worth complaining about too much. And it also looks not bad, I guess. This is pretty impressive to be made with Unity, especially some of the cutscenes which outperform many other Unity games that I've seen before. The general theme and the story stays true to the genre, and it's a classic example of RPGs with orcs, mages, magic, and the like. The music is really nothing special either, and overall, this is just another example of a game not doing anything new or exciting. I'll admit, I'm not as experienced in this type of game as I am the others that I normally play each week, but even I can tell that this isn't anything special. It feels polished, and I appreciate that it does the job that it sets out to do, but I'm not going to praise it for being anything more than just another RPG. It passes, but that's about it. One potential red flag was raised when I read online that there are lots of DLCs in this game, and a friend of mine with a lot more experience with this kind of RPG told me that the majority of the content is locked behind a paywall once you get a little bit deeper into the game. I'm mentioning this because this game isn't good enough to do that. It is not good enough to lock content behind DLCs, and I wouldn't pay to get anything more than is already there. So shame on the devs for doing that. I mean, it's already priced at $19.99, so there's no need to force players into shelling out more change just to experience more mediocrity. This has been out for quite a while on Steam, but it only recently made its way to the PS4. I would not pay $20 for it. It just isn't worth it, especially when you won't be able to experience everything without paying even more money for that downloadable content. I will say though, if you're a tabletop fan and these kind of RPGs are your cup of tea, you will probably disagree with me, but that's okay. Trust me, I'm used to it by now. So that is Warhammer Quest. If you liked it, leave a like. If you like me, subscribe. Don't forget to join the weekly contest, check out the Patreon, and I will see you guys on the next one.